The first sign came at 3:42 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Lisa Wong was drinking her third cup of coffee in the radio astronomy lab when every screen in the building started flashing red warnings. The massive radio telescope in New Mexico had picked up something impossible. Hundreds of signals moving toward Earth at incredible speed. Lisa ran to the main computer and started typing fast. Her hands shook as she pulled up the data. The signals were too big to be asteroids, too fast to be natural. It's organized to be anything except ships. Big ships. Really big ships. She grabbed her phone and called her boss. Then she called the military. Within 10 minutes, every major government on Earth knew that something was coming from space. Something that looked very much like an invasion fleet. General Jake Harrison was eating breakfast with his wife when the call came. He had been running military operations for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. He kissed his wife goodbye and drove to Nora as fast as his car could go. By the time he arrived, the Situation Room was packed with worried faces. In flashing screens, the alien ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside Earth's moon. There were over 300 of them. The smallest ones were as big as aircraft carriers. The largest one was the size of Manhattan. They moved in perfect formation, like they had done this many times before. President Carol Stevens stood in the Oval Office, watching the news reports with her advisors. Every TV channel showed the same thing. Dark shapes moving across the sky, blocking out stars. The ships were so big that people could see them without telescopes. Children pointed at them from their backyards. Parents called schools to pick up their kids early. Commander Vextel stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue and green planet below. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. This was supposed to be number 18. The humans looked primitive from space. Their technology was basic. Their military was scattered across their planet instead of united. This should be easy. He opened a communication channel to all Earth governments. His translator converted his words into every human language at once. People of Earth. His voice echoed from every radio, television, and speaker on the planet. I am Commander Vexel of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world is now under our control. You have one day to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons, disable all military equipment, prepare for occupation, resist, and your cities will burn. The message ended with a demonstration. A beam of energy shot down from the flagship and hit an empty patch of ocean. The water boiled. Instantly, steam rose 5 miles into the sky. Satellites picked up the energy reading. It was enough to destroy a major city in seconds. President Stevens called an emergency meeting with world leaders. The video conference included presidents, prime ministers, and kings from every major nation. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. Most were simply terrified. We can't fight them, said the British Prime Minister. Did you see what they did to the ocean? They could wipe out London in seconds. If we surrender, what happens to us? Asked the leader of Japan. Do we become slaves? Do they kill us anyway? President Stevens listened to all of them argue. Then she made her decision. I'm not surrendering, she said quietly. This is our world, our home. If they want it, they'll have to take it. Not everyone agreed with her. Some countries announced they would surrender separately. Others said they would fight to the end. The human race was divided when it needed unity most. General Harrison worked through the night, calling every military commander he could reach. The plan was simple because it had to be. They would fight with everything they had. Probably wouldn't be enough, but they would try anyway. Captain Tony Rodriguez got the call at dawn. He was one of the best fighter pilots in the Air Force, with over 200 combat missions, but he had never fought aliens before. None of them had. Gathered a squadron at the airbase and looked at their faces. Good pilots. Brave people. Some of them were barely old enough to drink. All right, people, he said. This is it. The big one. We don't know much about their ships or their weapons, but we know they bleed. We saw pieces of their scout ships crash. Yesterday, if they can crash, we can kill them. The first major battle started over New York City. 12 Zephyrian fighters came down from the main fleet. They moved in a straight line, weapons charging with bright blue light. They expected the humans to run or hide like most species did. Instead, they got Tony Rodriguez and his squadron coming at them head-on. The alien ships were faster and had better weapons. Their shields could stop most human missiles. But they moved like they were following a book of rules. They kept perfect formation. They didn't change speed or direction unless they had to. They fought like machines. The humans fought like crazy people. Tony's wingman, Lieutenant Amy Foster, came at the aliens from below while they were focused on the main attack. She fired every missile she had at once. The alien shields stopped. Most of them but one got through. The Zephyrian fighter exploded in a ball of fire. The aliens were shocked. How had the primitive humans gotten through their shields? They broke formation to chase Amy, which was exactly what Tony wanted. He dove down from above and rammed his fighter straight into the side of an alien ship. Both craft exploded, but Tony had ejected just in time. The battle lasted 20 minutes. The humans lost 8 fighters. The aliens lost 4. By the math, the aliens won. But Commander Vextel was worried. His pilots were supposed to be unstoppable. Humans weren't supposed to be able to hurt them at all. Dr. Kevin Park watched the battle from his laboratory window. He was a smart man who had worked on secret military projects for years. While the pilots were fighting in the sky, he was studying pieces of crashed alien ships in his lab. The alien technology was amazing. Their power sources were 100 times more efficient than anything humans had built. Their computers were faster, their materials were stronger. But Kevin noticed something interesting. The aliens built everything the same way. Every ship had the same design. Every weapon worked the same way. Every computer used the same programs. Humans built things differently. Every car company made different cars. Every computer company had different software. Every military unit had different tactics. Humans were messy and chaotic and unpredictable. Maybe that was exactly what they needed, as the sun set on the first day of the invasion. Both sides counted their losses and planned for tomorrow. The Zephyrians had expected Earth to surrender. After the first battle, instead, more human fighters were taking off from bases around the world. Resistance groups were forming in every major city. The humans were getting ready for a long war. Commander Vextel looked at the reports from his officers. The humans had better pilots than expected. Their tactics made no sense, which made them hard to counter. Some of his ships had been damaged by weapons that shouldn't have been able to hurt them. This was going to take longer than planned. On Earth, General Harrison worked through the night again. They had lost the first battle, but they had learned important things. The aliens could be hurt. They could be confused. They could be beaten. It was going to be a long war. But Jake Harrison was starting to think they might actually have a chance. The invasion of Earth had begun, but it wasn't going the way anyone expected. 3 months had passed since the aliens landed on Earth. The Zephyrians controlled most of the major cities now. Their tall gray soldiers walked through the streets with energy weapons that could cut through steel. Their ships hovered over government. Buildings like dark clouds that never moved. But the aliens were learning that controlling a city and controlling the people were 2 different things. Marine. Sergeant Amy Collins crouched behind a fallen tree in the Colorado mountains. Snow was falling, making it hard to see more than 50 feet ahead. Perfect weather for what she had planned. Her team of 12 resistance fighters was hidden in the rocks around her. They had been waiting for 3 hours for the alien patrol. To come down the mountain path, Amy had been a drill instructor before the invasion. She knew how to train soldiers and how to fight. But this was different from any war humans had ever fought. The aliens had better weapons, better armor, and better technology. So Amy had to be smarter. The Zephyrian patrol came around the bend right on schedule. 6 soldiers in silver suits that could stop bullets. Energy rifles that could burn through a tank. Motion sensors that could detect a human heartbeat from 200 yards away. But they walked in a straight line down the middle of the path. It's just like they always did. Amy waited until they were directly below her position. Then she triggered. The avalanche. Tons of snow and rocks came crashing down the mountainside. The aliens tried to run, but their heavy armor slowed them down. 3 were buried completely. The other three were knocked down and stunned. Amy's team jumped out of hiding and attacked before the aliens could recover. They used captured alien weapons taken from previous ambushes. The fight was over in 30 seconds. "Strip their gear and let's move," Amy ordered. "More patrols will come looking for them soon." Her fighters worked fast, taking weapons, communication devices, and power cells. They had learned to hit hard and disappear before the aliens could respond. It was the only way to survive. 200 miles away, Dr. Kevin Park was having his own breakthrough. The secret laboratory hidden under a destroyed shopping mall had become his new home. The concrete walls were covered with alien technology that he had been studying day and night. Kevin held up a small device that looked like a metal egg. It was a Zephyrian power cell, the thing that made all their weapons and equipment work. He had been trying to understand how it worked for weeks. Today, he finally figured it out. "It's not just storing energy," he said to his assistant, Dr. Beth Miller. "It's creating energy from nothing. They're converting matter directly into power, using some kind of quantum field manipulation." Beth looked at the readings on her computer screen. "Can we copy it?" Kevin smiled for the first time in months. "Better than that. I think we can improve it. The aliens built this to be safe and reliable, but if we remove some of the safety controls..." Connected the modified power cell to a human-built laser rifle. The weapon lit up with 10 times more power than it was designed to handle. When Kevin fired it at a steel plate, the laser cut through it like butter. "Now we're getting somewhere," he said. The news about Kevin's breakthrough spread through the Resistance network quickly. Communications officer Betty Price made sure of that. She had been a radio technician before the war, working for a small town radio station. Now she coordinated resistance groups across 3 continents using equipment built from spare parts and salvaged alien technology. Betty sat in her hidden radio room, which was actually an old subway tunnel in New York City. Dozens of radios and computers surrounded her desk. Messages came in from resistance groups in Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Everyone wanted to know about the new weapons. "This is Radio Free Earth," she broadcast on the secret frequency that only resistance fighters knew. "Package delivery. Confirmed. Recipe distribution begins tomorrow. All kitchens prepare for cooking lessons." It sounded like nonsense to anyone listening, but resistance fighters knew the code. Kevin's power cell modification would be shared with every group that could build the weapons. Soon, humans everywhere would have guns that could hurt the aliens. The Zephyrians were starting to notice that something was wrong. Commander Vexthel stood in his command center, looking at reports from across the planet. Patrol losses were increasing every week. Equipment was being stolen. Communication networks were being disrupted. "These humans fight differently than other species," said his second-in-command, Captain Zarthal. "Those conquered worlds accept defeat after we demonstrate our power." Vexthel studied the tactical reports. Human attacks made no sense according to Zephyrian military doctrine. They didn't try to hold territory or protect strategic locations. Instead, they hit targets that seemed random, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. "Send more patrols," he ordered. "Double the guard units around our installations. These primitive animals will learn to fear us eventually." But the humans weren't learning to fear them. They were learning to hunt them. Captain Ray Thompson had been an engineer before the war, designing bridges and buildings. Now he designed traps. Aliens had taken over the power plant where he used to work, using it to charge their ships and equipment. Ray knew every pipe, wire, control system in that building. He spent 2 weeks sneaking through maintenance tunnels, placing small charges in exactly the right spots. Not enough to destroy the building, but enough to cause a very specific kind of failure. When Ray triggered the trap, the power plant's cooling system failed in a cascade that the aliens couldn't stop. The main reactor overloaded and exploded, destroying 3 Zephyrian ships that were docked nearby. Ray died in the explosion, but his sacrifice took out more alien equipment than most military units had managed to destroy. The explosion was seen for 50 miles. Resistance fighters across the region cheered when they realized what had happened. The aliens could be hurt. Their technology could be destroyed. The war wasn't hopeless after all. News of Ray's success reached Amy Collins in her mountain hideout. She gathered her team around a small fire, keeping their voices low. Command wants us to hit the supply depot in Denver, she told them. Intelligence says they're storing enough equipment there to supply their entire Western operations. Her fighters looked worried. Denver was heavily guarded. Going into the city meant walking into the teeth of alien defenses. I know it's dangerous, Amy continued. But we've learned their patterns. They expect us to attack from outside the city and retreat to the mountains, so we're going to do the opposite. We'll hide inside the city, hit them from behind, and escape through the sewers. It was crazy. It was suicide. It was exactly the kind of unpredictable human thinking that was driving the aliens insane. Dr. Lisa Wong had been tracking alien communications from her hidden facility in the desert. She noticed something interesting in the past few weeks. Aliens were making more mistakes. Their communications were less organized. Their patrols were taking longer to respond to attacks. They're getting frustrated, she told General Harrison. During their weekly video call, their entire military system is based on following predetermined procedures. When we do things they don't expect, it breaks their decision-making process. General Harrison nodded. He had been coordinating resistance. Operations from a bunker hidden under an abandoned farm. Every day brought reports of new attacks, new victories, and new hope. How long before they adapt to our tactics? He asked. Lisa looked at her data carefully. That's the beautiful part. They can't adapt. Their whole society is built around rigid hierarchy and following orders exactly. Individual creativity is discouraged. When they encounter a problem they haven't seen before, they have to wait for new orders from higher command. And how long does that take? Weeks, sometimes months. By the time they figure out how to counter one of our tactics, we've already moved on to something new. The first time since the invasion began, General Harrison allowed himself to smile. The war was far from over, but the humans were no longer just surviving. They were learning. They were adapting. They were becoming more than the aliens had ever expected. In space, more Zephyrian ships arrived to reinforce the invasion fleet. But instead of the quick victory they had planned, they found a world that refused to stay conquered. The humans were becoming stronger every day. The war was about to change in ways that no one could predict. 6 months after the invasion began, everything changed. Dr. Helen Brooks wiped sweat from her forehead as she looked at the machine in front of her. The secret facility hidden in the Australian desert had been her home for 3 months. She barely remembered what sunlight looked like, but today, all the sleepless nights and failed experiments were finally worth it. The machine looked like a fighter jet that had been built by aliens and humans working together. The hull was made from salvaged Zephyrian metal that was stronger than steel but lighter than aluminum. The engines were human-designed, but powered by modified alien energy cells. The weapons were a mixture of both technologies that created something neither species had ever seen before. Fire it up, Helen told her team of engineers. The hybrid fighter came to life with a sound like thunder mixed with music. The engines glowed with blue-white light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Power readings showed energy levels that made everyone in the room step back in amazement. "It's beautiful," whispered Tom Davis, the test pilot who would fly the first mission. He had been flying experimental aircraft for 10 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Helen ran her hands along the side of the craft. "It's not just beautiful, it's impossible. According to everything we know about physics, this thing shouldn't work. But human intuition found ways to make alien technology do things the aliens never imagined." 2,000 miles away, Colonel Steve Murphy was planning the most dangerous mission of his life. He stood in a bunker, carved into the side of a mountain, looking at pictures of the Zephyrian command ship floating in space above. Earth. The massive vessel was the size of a city and carried enough firepower to destroy continents. Steve had been chosen to lead the first squadron of hybrid fighters in combat. 12 of the new ships had been built in secret facilities around the world. 12 pilots had been training for weeks to fly them. Today, they would find out if human creativity could beat alien technology, remember Steve told his pilots. During their final briefing, "These ships are different from anything you've ever flown. They respond to your thoughts as much as your hands. The alien technology is reading your brain patterns and translating them into flight commands. Don't think too hard about what you're doing. Just fly." The mission was simple in theory. Get close to the command ship. Destroy its main power core. Get out alive. But the command ship was protected by hundreds of fighter craft and defensive weapons that could track targets moving faster than bullets. "We're not going to fight our way through," Steve explained. "We're going to confuse them. Make them think we're doing one thing while we do something else. Make them react to threats that aren't there while we hit them where they're not looking." The 12 hybrid fighters launched from hidden bases around the world at exactly the same time. They climbed toward space faster than any human aircraft had ever flown. The alien sensors detected them immediately, but the readings made no sense. Hybrid fighters were giving off energy signatures that looked like Zephyrian ships, but moving in patterns that looked human. The alien computer systems couldn't decide if they were friend or enemy. For precious seconds, the defensive systems hesitated. That hesitation was all Steve needed. His squadron split into 4 groups that attacked from different directions. The alien fighters scrambled to intercept them, but the hybrids moved in ways that broke every rule of space combat. They spun and rolled and dove like they were flying through atmosphere instead of vacuum. They fired weapons that shouldn't have. Worked together, but somehow did. Lieutenant Commander Julia Davis led one of the attack groups straight at the command ship's main hangar. The alien defenders thought she was going to ram the ship, so they concentrated their fire on her. But at the last second, Julia's group pulled up and over the ship, while Steve's group dove down and attacked from below. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. Human pilots pushed their hybrid fighters to limits that scared them. Alien defenders tried to use tactics that had worked for centuries against enemies that followed predictable rules. But the humans weren't following any rules at all. Steve's fighter shot through the command ship's defenses like an arrow through paper. His target was a power core the size of a building, protected by shields that could stop nuclear weapons. But the modified human weapons cut through the shields like they weren't there. The explosion could be seen from Earth's surface. The Zephyrian command ship broke apart in a ball of fire that lit up the night sky. Alien fighters across the solar system lost coordination as their command structure collapsed. Back on Earth, the news spread faster than wildfire. The impossible had happened. Humans had not only survived an alien invasion, but had started winning. Captain Nina Foster got the news while she was preparing for her own mission. She was leading a special operations team deep into enemy territory to rescue prisoners held in an alien facility. But Nina's mission was about more than just saving lives. She had discovered something about the aliens that could change everything. Nina's team had captured a Zephyrian officer during a raid 2 weeks earlier. Under interrogation, the alien revealed something shocking about his species. They were not the master race they pretended to be. They were slaves themselves, following orders from an emperor they had never seen, using tactics written by generals who had been dead for centuries. "They're not individuals," Nina explained to her team as they prepared to infiltrate the alien prison. "They're more like parts of a machine. Each one has a specific function and follows specific programs. They can't think outside those programs, because they've never learned how." The alien prison was a fortress built into the side of a mountain. It held over 300 human prisoners, including scientists, military officers, and government officials. The Zephyrians were studying them, trying to understand how humans could be so unpredictable. Nina's plan was simple, but crazy. Instead of sneaking into the prison, her team would walk in the front door. They had captured alien uniforms and equipment. They knew the passwords and procedures. They would pretend to be Zephyrian soldiers, bringing in new prisoners. The disguise worked perfectly. The alien guards didn't look closely at the fake prisoners being brought in. They followed their procedures exactly, just like they always did. That was their weakness. Once inside, Nina's team moved fast. They overpowered the guards, freed the prisoners, and seized control of the facility's communication system. But instead of just escaping, Nina did something that would change the course of the war. She started broadcasting to every Zephyrian communication device in the region. Her message was simple but devastating. "Attention Zephyrian forces," she announced. "This is Captain Nina Foster of the Human Resistance. We have captured your prison facility and freed all prisoners. We know about your Emperor's death 300 years ago. We know about the computer programs that have been giving you orders. We know that you are slaves just like us. The message caused chaos throughout the alien forces. Zephyrian soldiers began questioning orders they had never doubted before. Some units stopped responding to commands entirely. Others began fighting. Among themselves, Dr. Paul Grant was monitoring alien communications when Nina's broadcast went out. He watched in amazement as the organized Zephyrian military structure began to fall apart. Units that had worked together for centuries suddenly couldn't coordinate their actions. It's like watching a hive mind collapse, Paul told his research team. Their entire society is based on following orders without question. When they start questioning those orders, the whole system breaks down. The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had hoped. Human forces across the globe reported that alien resistance was weakening. Some Zephyrian units were retreating from positions they had held for months. Others were surrendering without a fight. General Jake Harrison watched the reports coming in from around the world. For the first time since the invasion began, human forces were advancing instead of just surviving. Cities were being liberated. Alien strongholds were being abandoned. The tide of war had turned, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. Zephyrians still had thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. They still controlled most of the major population centers on Earth, and somewhere out in space. The rest of their empire was probably preparing to send reinforcements. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Jake Harrison believed that humanity might actually win. The aliens had wanted to enslave Earth. Instead, they were learning that humans could not be conquered by anyone, including themselves. The hunters were becoming the hunted. Zephyrians were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake when they decided to invade Earth. 1 year after the invasion began, the war had completely changed. The Zephyrians were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey. Admiral Chris Bell stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Liberty, watching the solar system through new eyes. 6 months ago, humans had been hiding in caves and fighting with stolen weapons. Now they commanded a fleet of 60 hybrid ships that could outfight anything the aliens had ever built. The Liberty was Chris's flagship, a massive vessel built from captured alien technology and human engineering. It was twice as fast as any Zephyrian ship and carried weapons that could punch through their strongest shields. More importantly, it was crewed by humans who thought for themselves instead of following ancient computer programs. "Admiral, we're picking up Zephyrian signals near Jupiter," reported Lieutenant Sam Parker from the communications station. "Looks like a supply convoy trying to reach their base on one of the moons." Chris smiled. Supply convoys had become his favorite targets. The aliens needed constant supplies from their home worlds to keep fighting. Every convoy destroyed meant fewer weapons, less fuel, and lower morale for the occupation forces still on Earth. "Set course to intercept," Chris ordered. "Signal the Ranger and the Phoenix to join us. Let's show these aliens what happens when they enter our solar system." The hunt began immediately. Human ships moved through space like sharks smelling blood. They didn't announce themselves or demand surrender like the aliens used to do. They simply appeared, attacked with devastating efficiency, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Lieutenant Commander Julia Davis led the boarding parties that had become famous throughout human space. Teams specialized in capturing alien ships intact, along with their crews and cargo. The information they gathered had given human forces a complete picture of Zephyrian military operations across the galaxy. Julia floated in zero gravity outside a Zephyrian cargo ship, her boarding team ready behind her. The aliens inside had no idea they were being watched. Their sensors showed empty space because human stealth technology had advanced far beyond what anyone thought possible. "Remember, we want prisoners and cargo intact," Julia told her team. Through their helmet radios, "These aliens are carrying supplies for 3 different star systems. We need to know where those systems are and how to get there." The boarding action was over in minutes. Human soldiers in advanced combat suits moved through the alien ship like ghosts. The Zephyrian crew never had a chance to send a distress signal or destroy their cargo. They were captured alive and their ship was taken as a prize. But the real treasure was in the ship's computer systems. Dr. Paul Grant had learned to read alien data files months ago. What he found in the cargo ship's records made him call an emergency meeting with the military command. "This changes everything," Paul told Admiral Bell and the other fleet commanders. "The aliens aren't just occupying Earth. They're fighting rebellions on dozens of worlds across their empire. Species that have been slaves for centuries are rising up after hearing about what humans accomplished. The data showed a galaxy in chaos. The rigid Zephyrian Empire was falling apart as world after world followed the human example. Alien military units were being pulled away from Earth to fight new wars on planets that had been peaceful for generations." Ow! "Many worlds are in rebellion?" asked General Jake Harrison, joining the meeting by video link from Earth. Paul scrolled through the captured data. "At least 40 that we know of. Maybe more. The aliens are losing control of their entire empire, and it all started here. Other species are using human tactics, human strategies, even human battle cries." The news spread quickly through the human fleet and resistance forces on Earth. They weren't just fighting for their own world anymore. They had become the spark that lit a fire across the galaxy. Every victory made them stronger and made the aliens weaker. Commander Vextel, the alien who had once demanded Earth's surrender, now found himself facing a court-martial aboard the last major Zephyrian ship in Earth's solar system. The proud invasion fleet had been reduced to a few dozen vessels hiding behind asteroids and trying not to be found by human hunters. "You were ordered to conquer one primitive world," said High Commander Zektoran, Vextel's superior. "Instead, you have lost an entire invasion fleet and caused rebellions across 40 star systems. Explain yourself." Vextel looked tired and defeated. A year of fighting humans had broken his confidence in Zephyrian superiority. "The humans are not like other species, sir. They adapt faster than our tactical computers can calculate. Create new strategies faster than we can develop counters. They fight like each individual is a general commanding his own army." "Excuses," Zektoran replied coldly. "The Emperor demands results. If you cannot provide them, you will be replaced." But replacing commanders wouldn't solve the Zephyrian problem. The entire empire was built on the idea that superior technology and rigid discipline could defeat any enemy. Humans had proven that idea wrong. Now other species across the galaxy were learning the same lesson. Back on Earth, the liberation was accelerating. Major cities that had been under alien control for months were being freed by human forces equipped with advanced hybrid technology. New York, London, Tokyo, dozens of other cities saw their alien occupiers retreat or surrender as human forces closed in. Captain Amy Collins, who had started the war as a resistance fighter in the mountains, now commanded a full battalion of soldiers equipped with the best weapons human engineering could create. Her forces were approaching Denver, one of the last major alien strongholds in North America. "I remember what we learned in the mountains," Amy told her troops before the final assault. "The aliens are predictable. They follow their procedures. Even when those procedures don't make sense, we're going to use that against them." The battle for Denver lasted 3 days. Alien forces fought hard, but they were outnumbered and outgunned by humans who had learned to fight smarter instead of just harder. When the city was finally liberated, crowds cheered Amy and her soldiers like heroes returning from an impossible victory. Dr. Lisa Wong monitored alien communications during the Denver battle. What she heard told her that the war was nearly over. Zephyrian commanders were arguing among themselves. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to retreat and save what they could of their forces. A few were talking about complete surrender. "They're breaking apart," Lisa reported to General Harrison. "Their command structure is collapsing. Units are making decisions without waiting for orders from higher command. Some are retreating on their own. Others are just sitting still, waiting for someone to tell them what to do." General Harrison looked at the tactical displays showing human forces advancing across the globe. Alien resistance was crumbling everywhere. The last major strongholds would fall within weeks, maybe days. But Jake knew the real war was just beginning. Earth was free, but the Zephyrian Empire still controlled hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. The aliens who had tried to enslave humanity would retreat to their home systems and regroup. They would build new fleets and plan new invasions, unless humans stop them first. Send a message to Admiral Bell, General Harrison ordered. Tell him to prepare the fleet for deep space operations. We're not going to wait for the aliens to come back. We're going to take the fight to them. The decision was made without hesitation or debate. Humanity had learned that the best defense was a good offense. They had also learned that freedom wasn't something you could protect by hiding. Sometimes you had to carry it to other worlds that needed it just as much as Earth had. The Zephyrian Empire had lasted for thousands of years by conquering species that couldn't fight back effectively. Now they were about to learn what happened. When they attacked a species that could not only fight back, but could take the fight anywhere in the galaxy, the hunters had become the hunted. Soon, the hunted would become the conquered. And the species that had tried to enslave Earth was about to discover what it felt like to kneel before a superior force. The tables had turned completely, and there was no going back. 18 months after the aliens first arrived at Earth, Admiral Sarah Blake stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking down at the Zephyrian homeworld. The massive human fleet floated in space above the planet that had once been the center of a galactic empire. Now, it was surrounded and defenseless. The journey to the Zephyrian home system had taken 3 months. Human ships using captured alien technology could travel faster than light, but crossing half the galaxy still took time. During that journey, they had liberated 12 worlds and destroyed 6 alien fleets. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Everywhere humans appeared, "Open a channel to the planet," Sarah ordered. "It's time to give them the same choice they gave us." The communication beam reached the planet's surface in seconds. Every screen, radio, communication device on the Zephyrian homeworld received the same message that Earth had heard 18 months earlier. But this time, the roles were completely reversed. "People of Zephyr Prime," Sarah's voice echoed across the alien world. "I am Admiral Sarah Blake of the Human Federation Fleet. Your empire is defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your armies have surrendered. You have 1 hour to respond to our terms. Lay down all weapons. Disable all military equipment. Prepare for negotiations." But unlike the aliens had done to Earth, Sarah didn't threaten to burn their cities. She didn't demand complete surrender. Instead, she offered something the Zephyrian Empire had never given to any conquered world. "We come not as conquerors, but as liberators. We offer you the chance to join a new kind of galactic community, one based on cooperation instead of domination. One where every species contributes their strengths instead of serving as slaves." On the planet below, Emperor Zarthik sat in his throne room surrounded by advisors who could barely speak. The mighty Zephyrian Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years had been brought to its knees by a species they had dismissed as primitive animals. How is this possible? The Emperor asked his military commanders. "We had the largest fleet in the galaxy. We had technology that should have made us invincible. How did these humans defeat us so completely?" General Mokhtar, one of the few high-ranking officers to survive the war, looked exhausted and defeated. "They fight like no species we have ever encountered, Your Majesty. Every human soldier thinks like a general. Every human pilot invents new tactics in the middle of battle. They adapt faster than our computers can calculate responses. But more than that," added Science Minister Valkera, "they made other species believe they could fight back too. 43 worlds are now in open rebellion. Species that served us for centuries are using human tactics against our forces. The humans didn't just defeat us militarily. They defeated the idea that our empire was unstoppable." The Emperor stared at the reports covering his desk. Every page told the same story. Defeat after defeat. Retreat after retreat. An empire that had seemed eternal, crumbling in less than 2 years. He asked quietly, Captain Ron Mitchell, who had started the war as a simple infantry soldier, now served as Earth's chief diplomatic officer. He stood in the Zephyrian Imperial Palace, surrounded by alien nobles who looked at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Ron had learned to speak the Zephyrian language during the long journey to their home world. He understood their culture, their history, and their psychology. That understanding made him the perfect person to explain humanity's vision for the galaxy's future. "We're not here to replace your empire with a human empire," Ron explained. The gathered Zephyrian leaders. "We're here to build something better. A federation where every world has a voice, where every species contributes their unique abilities, where no one serves as a slave to anyone else." The alien nobles whispered among themselves. The concept was so foreign to them that many couldn't understand it. For 3,000 years, their society had been built on the idea that some species were meant to rule and others were meant to serve. "What would be our role in this federation?" asked Minister Valkara. Ron smiled. "Whatever role you choose. Your people are excellent engineers and administrators. Your technology, combined with human creativity and the skills of other species, could build wonders that none of us could create alone." Emperor Zarthik finally spoke. "And if we refuse your offer?" Ron's expression remained friendly, but his words carried the weight of the human fleet orbiting above them. "Then you'll face the same choice every other Zephyrian world has faced. Join the Federation willingly, or watch your empire continue to collapse around you while your former slaves build new lives without you." It wasn't really a choice at all, and everyone in the room knew it. The negotiations took 3 days. Former enemies sat around tables trying to build a future that neither side could have imagined when the war began. The Zephyrians learned about human concepts like democracy, individual rights, and voluntary cooperation. The humans learned about Zephyrian administrative systems that had kept hundreds of worlds functioning for millennia. General Jake Harrison arrived on the second day of negotiations. The man who had coordinated Earth's desperate defense now found himself helping to design a government for half the galaxy. He sat across from former enemies who had tried to destroy his world, discussing trade agreements and defense treaties. "This feels impossible," Jake told Admiral Blake during a break in the talks. 18 months ago, these people were trying to kill every human on Earth. Now we're planning to work together." Sarah nodded. "That's what makes us human, Jake. We can see beyond the war to what comes after." The Zephyrians never learned how to do that. They only knew how to conquer or be conquered. We're teaching them there's a third option. The final ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Zephyrian Imperial Palace. Representatives from dozens of worlds attended, including many species that had been slaves under the old empire. Former Commander Vexthel, the alien who had demanded Earth's surrender, stood among the crowd, wearing the uniform of a junior officer in the new Federation Navy. Emperor Zarthik, no longer an emperor, but now a planetary representative, signed the charter that dissolved his empire and created the Terran Federation. His hand shook as he wrote his name on the document that ended 3,000 years of Zephyrian rule. "Today, we turn our backs on an age of conquest and slavery," said Admiral Blake as she signed the charter as the Federation's first Supreme Commander. "Today we begin building a galaxy where every world is free to choose its own path." Most important moment came when Dr. Lisa Wong, now the Federation's chief science officer, activated the new communication network that would connect every member world. The first message sent through the system was directed not at Federation members, but at distant galaxies that humans had never contacted. "This is the Terran Federation," the message began. "We are a community of free worlds united by choice, not force. We come not as conquerors, but as friends. We have learned that the strongest societies are built on cooperation, not domination. Join us, and together we will build something greater than any empire." The message would take years to reach other galaxies, but when it did, it would carry with it the story of a small blue world that had been invaded by a mighty empire and had not only survived, but had transformed that empire into something better. Former enemies now worked side by side. Vexthel served under human officers who treated him with respect despite their history. Zephyrian engineers worked with human inventors to create technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Children from dozens of different worlds learned together in schools where no one was considered superior or inferior. The war that had begun with aliens demanding Earth's surrender had ended with those same aliens kneeling not in defeat, but in partnership. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, replaced by something that no galaxy had ever seen before. a community of equals, working together toward a future that promised freedom and opportunity for everyone. And in the depths of space, more messages were being prepared. Messages that would be sent to galaxies yet unexplored, carrying news of the Terran Federation and its revolutionary idea that strength came not from conquest, but from cooperation. The humans who had once faced extinction were now leading half the galaxy toward a better future. They had wanted Earth enslaved and had ended up kneeling instead. But in the end, everyone stood up together.